Okay, so it's been a while again. So hopefully this time we can finish the book. Sorry about the lighting. If you actually pay attention to that at all. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, yeah, we don't really have that much left. Because this is how much we have read so far, which is 176 pages, in case you wanted to know. And that's how much we have left. Not a lot. Alright. So this is called At the Hospital. It had been an anxious few weeks, but everyone was relieved when Oswald and Frances came home with the good news that the last of the operations had gone well. Next would come the long, boring weeks that Patsy would have to spend in the hospital lying flat on her back in a body cast. From then on, every other weekend, the Polka Dots would ride up to Atlanta to visit as a group. And although he was anxious to get back and visit Patsy, Oswald rode up with them only once. Once was enough. Seated in a car full of women squashed between his 6-foot landlady and Sybil Underwood, having to listen to them talk non-stop all the way to Atlanta and back was too much for him to bear. After that fateful trip, he only went with Frances alone or hitched a ride with Butch. He also rode with Roy, who sometimes went on Sunday and came back Sunday night. That's a long drive. Everybody brought her games or picture books to try and keep Patsy occupied. Oswald always brought her little drawings that made her laugh, especially one of him in the car with all the women. One day, when the Polka Dots came to visit, they were surprised to learn that a delegation from the Dotted Swiss had just been there and presented Patsy with a beautiful hand-sewn quilt for her bed, with "Get Well Soon" appliqued in the middle. Although they were pleased that the Dotted Swiss had come, Betty Kitchen examined the quilt and remarked, "It just galls me to say it, girls, but look at those little stitches. They have us beat in needlework, hands down." Dottie put on her glasses and looked more closely and had to agree. Mildred said, "Maybe so, but you have to admit, nobody can beat Frances's macaroni and cheese. We always have that, not to mention our floating island." "And," added Sybil, "I know we are not one to blow our own horn, but don't forget the tomato aspic." "Ah," they all said, nodding, and felt better about the whole thing. That is the most Southern woman thing I've ever heard. Oh, man. Patsy suddenly giggled in bed. Frances walked over and squeezed her big toe with affection. "What's so funny, young lady?" "Tomato aspic," she said, and giggled again. Finally, the day came when the cast was removed. Now, according to the doctor, came the hardest part, the long months of therapy. The goal was to improve Patsy's range of motion more each day and eventually get her back up on her feet and walking. But walking again was not going to be easy. They had to change her gait completely from what it had been and retrain all the muscles. Her physical therapy nurse was a pretty dark-eyed woman named Amelia Martinez, who was impressed with the way Patsy tried so hard and never complained through the long, grueling hours of painful exercise. One day, when Patsy was in water therapy, Amelia pulled Frances aside. "You know, Mrs. Cleaverton, she's the bravest little girl I have ever worked with. With all the pain we have to put her through, well, let's just put it this way. I've seen grown men cry over less. Dr. Glickman told me he'd never seen anybody improve so fast in his life." Then she smiled and waved at Patsy. "That little girl wants to get better and go home." During Patsy's therapy, everyone came to visit as often as they could, and when they were not able to be there in person, they all sent cards and letters that Amelia would read to her. Amelia soon got to know everybody in Lost River by their letters. Each time Frances and Oswald came to visit, they were pleased Patsy was doing so well, but still her first question was always, "How is Jack?" And of course they would always say, "Just fine," and felt terrible about it. But what else could they do? All that mattered now was that she was improving. Even though even though all the strengthening exercises she was put through each day were painful and exhausting, they were starting to work. She was now able to walk a few feet without support. As far as Patsy was concerned, each new step was just one step closer to getting home to see Jack. Along the river, the Lost River Community Association letter. Fall is here, and it's hard to believe that old Father Time is in such a hurry. Seems like it was only yesterday when summer arrived, but tempus fugit, as they say, and Thanksgiving is around the corner. And we have a lot to be thankful for in our community this year, as the news from Atlanta is still very positive and Patsy's therapy continues to go well. All good things come to those who wait, and we can hardly wait until our own Miss Patsy is back home again. Don't forget to start planning for the potluck and get those pumpkin pies and turkeys ready to go. Dottie Nivens. The days passed and Patsy's future was looking brighter. Amelia continued to report that she was making great progress. Even Mildred seemed to be getting happier as fate will do sometimes. It threw Mildred a curve in the form of a letter from her old lost love, Billy Jenkins, who wrote telling her that he was now a widower and would love to see her again. And surprise of all surprises, Mildred told Frances she was going to drive up to Chattanooga and visit him. It was the last thing in the world Frances figured she would ever do, but as she so often said, with Mildred you never knew which way she was going to jump from 1 minute to the next. She had left on Friday, and it was already Tuesday, and Frances had not heard one word from her the entire time and didn't know what to think. Then, around 4 that afternoon, Mildred pulled into the driveway. She could hardly wait to see her sister. She threw open the front door and yelled, "Frances, I'm back!" The minute Frances saw her, she knew something big had happened. There was a glow about Mildred as she stood there wearing a new lavender pantsuit, and she looked younger and prettier than she had in years. With her face flushed with excitement, she exclaimed, "I've got news!" Frances felt her heart start to pound. "Oh dear, do I need to sit down?" and then sat down anyway. After she was seated, Mildred announced, "Well, I saw him." And Frances, I am the luckiest woman alive." Frances put her hand up to her mouth. "Oh my God, I don't believe it, after all these years." "I don't believe it either. I have dodged a bullet. Thank the good Lord that idiot got cold feet and I didn't get stuck with him. The man is a perfect fool. What I ever saw in him is beyond me." "What? You know what he wanted, don't you? He wanted a nurse and a cook, and even had the nerve to ask me how big my house was and how much money I was getting a month from Social Security. Then he showed me a picture of his 6 daughters, and Frances, that was the ugliest bunch of women I have ever seen. They all looked like him in bad dresses. When I saw that, I thought to myself, I could have been looking at my own children. Then he wanted to know if I had enough room for his granddaughter, who is just out of drug rehab, and her 4 kids, to come live with us. They need a mother, he said." Frances was flabbergasted. "Oh my word, what did you say?" "I said, Billy, you broke my heart and ruined my life. And you want me to take you back now that you are an old man and all worn out, move into my house, and have me cook and clean for 6 people? I said, well, you are going to have to look around some more to find that fool, because it's not going to be me." And I left. Frances said, "Mildred, I hope you're not too upset. Maybe it was for the best that you saw him." "I'm not upset at all. I feel great." After Mildred left, Frances thought about how strange life had turned out for Mildred. At age 51, she was finally over Billy Jenkins once and for all. Now maybe, just maybe, she would be able to see how nice Oswald really was. Not only was he nice, he had talent. Maybe there was hope for the 2 of them after all. Frances had grown very fond of Oswald in the past few weeks and could not think of anybody she would rather have as a brother-in-law. She immediately put on her thinking cap about how to help things along. It wasn't meddling. Everybody needs a little help, she thought. Frances was planning another dinner party for Oswald and Mildred as soon as she and Oswald got back from their next trip to Atlanta, But something much more important came up. When they went to visit, Amelia told Frances once more that she was very pleased with Patsy's progress. She was getting better every day. Then she said, "But I know from experience when a child has something to look forward to, it makes all the difference in the world. And all she talks about is going home to see her friend Jack." Frances's heart sank when she heard that, and Oswald felt sick. Frances did not tell Amelia the bird was dead, but it was just a matter of time before Patsy would be coming home and going into the store expecting to find Jack. When he had died so suddenly, they had all been worried about how it would affect her before she had her operations. Now they had another dilemma on their hands. When the two of them arrived home, a special meeting of the Polka Dots was called, and Oswald was invited to attend, the second male ever to be invited. Frances felt he had earned his right if Patsy was going to be discussed. Dottie spoke first. "We can't let her come all the way home, and then when she gets here tell her he's dead. We have to at least warn her or something. Maybe we should just bite the bullet and go ahead and tell her the truth." "What truth? That all the hard work she's been doing, thinking she was going to get to come home and see Jack was for nothing?" Betty said, "Listen, she still has 6 more weeks of therapy left. Maybe if we tell her just a little something now to soften the blow, it won't be so hard on her." Mildred asked, "How can you soften the blow? Tell her he's sick?" Oswald spoke up. "No, we can't do that. I know Patsy, and that would only worry her." "He's right," said Frances. After much discussion, they finally decided what they would do. A letter would be written as soon as possible, and because of her literary background, Dottie would be the one to write it. And her nurse Amelia, the one Patsy liked so much, would be the one to read it out loud to her. After it was finished, Butch got in his truck and drove it to Atlanta, hand-delivered to Amelia Martinez, and then turned around and ran like a bandit. That afternoon, after therapy, Amelia sat by Patsy's bed and read the letter out loud to her. "Dear Patsy, I am writing you on behalf of all your friends here in Lost River to tell you the most wonderful news. Not more than 1 week after you left, a man came into the store and took a look at Jack. As it turned out, the man was a top veterinarian who specialized in treating injured birds. After examining Jack, he told Roy he could fix that wing, and he took Jack to his clinic and did just that, like your doctor did for you. When he came back, you can imagine how happy we all were to see Jack flying around the store as good as new. We all wanted to wait till you came home so you could be there with us when we set him free, but the doctor said it was best to let him go now. After we knew he was nice and strong and had fully recovered, we gathered at the store, and when Roy opened the door, he flew straight to the very top of the big cedar tree across the street. And oh, Patsy, how we all wished you could have been there with us to see it. Jack looked so happy to be free and flying around all the way up in the sky and back in nature again among his friends. Just as happy as all of us here will be to have you back among all your friends who love you. I know we will all miss not seeing Jack at the store anymore, but the other day Mrs. Underwood says she saw him looking fat and healthy sitting on a branch with a lady friend. So perhaps we may see a bunch of little Jacks flying around in the near future. We all hope you will be home very soon, and just like Jack, be healthy, happy, and as good as new. Best wishes from Dottie and all your friends at Lost River." Neither Sybil Underwood nor anyone else had spotted a redbird since Jack died, but Dottie said, "I'll just have to believe that the good Lord will forgive me for lying just this once. And if he doesn't, he's not half the man I thought he was." After Amelia read the letter to Patsy, she said, "Well, that's good news, isn't it? Your little bird friend is all cured, and well, just like you're going to be. Aren't you happy?" But Patsy did not look happy. She looked worried and upset. She remembered exactly what Roy had said about why Jack should not be outside, and it scared her. "Oh, Amelia, you don't think a hawk or an owl will get him, do you?" And then, for the first time since she had come to the hospital, she started to cry. Amelia was alarmed. "What's the matter?" she asked. "I want to go home. I want to see Jack." A couple of weeks later, Frances was in the kitchen when the phone rang. Mrs. Cleaverton, this is Dr. Glickman. Yes, doctor? I'm afraid we've had a little setback here. I think you need to get to Atlanta as soon as possible. Francis and Oswald left Lost River at 5 a.m. The next morning, and were sitting in Dr. Glickman's office by 11:30. What happened? Asked Francis. Well, the main problem is she's not progressing. If anything, she seems to be getting worse. We've done everything we can, but it's almost as if she's lost her will to get better. And without that, all the medicine and therapy in the world is not going to help. Oh no, what can we do? At this point, for you people to spend what you are spending to keep her here is a waste, so I'm recommending that you take her home for a while and give her a rest. Oswald said surprised. Is she ready to leave? No, physically she is not ready. She needs much more therapy if she's going to improve beyond the point where she is today. I don't like to release a patient who is not fully healed, but in this case it seems Patsy no longer cares about improving. And she was doing so well. Do you have any idea what might have caused this? Francis looked at Oswald and then at the doctor. I think she's just heartbroken over that bird. Are you talking about the bird in the picture she has? Asked the doctor. Oswald said yes, it was a little crippled redbird. He brightened a little. Well, maybe a visit with him could cheer her up. We can try at least. Is there any way we could get the bird here? No, that's the problem. The bird died. Oh, I see, said Dr. Glickman. And you told her? Francis said no. We were afraid to tell her the truth, so we lied and told her a veterinarian fixed him and he flew away. I wish we hadn't, but we did. Oswald said we didn't know what else to do. Dr. Glickman looked at the two distraught people across the desk. Don't be too hard on yourselves. At least for the time being, she can still think he's alive somewhere. That's something for her to hang on to. Then maybe, after some time passes, she'll get over it, and we can get back up here and finish what we started. How much time? Asked Francis. Dr. Glickman shook his head. Not much, I'm afraid. My concern is that without continuing therapy, the muscles will weaken. The leg will start to move back into the old position, and all our work here will have been for nothing. Let's hope we can get her back right after Christmas. Patsy, looking thinner than the last time they saw her, was so excited when they told her she was going home and could hardly wait to leave. Amelia was sorry to see her go, but helped her get packed up. And as they wheeled her out to the car, Amelia waved goodbye and hoped Patsy would be back, but she wondered if she would ever see her again. Patsy chattered happily to her picture of Jack all the way to Lost River, and Oswald and Francis both felt terrible. When she got home, she was still weak and could not walk very far. She had to stay inside most of the time. Everybody did everything they could to cheer her up, but all she wanted to do was look for Jack. Francis tried to reason with her. Darling, Jack is probably way off somewhere, busy with his own family, and he might not ever come back. But Patsy would not be convinced. Mr. Campbell says if you want something really, really bad, it will happen, and I really want to see Jack, really, really bad. Patsy woke up each day thinking she would see him, and was disappointed when she didn't. But she did not say so. On the days it rained, she sat in her room, looking out the window, hoping to get a glimpse of him. Francis could not tell her the truth. Dr. Glickman said it was good to have hope, even if it was only false hope. Christmas was coming, and Francis was hoping for something as well. She was hoping that Christmas would be a distraction for Patsy, and to get the bird off her mind once and for all. She told Mildred, "This will be Patsy's first Christmas with us, and I don't care what anybody says, I'm going to spoil her to death." Day after day, Claude came up the river and delivered Christmas packages for Patsy, sent from every store that had a catalog. Stuffed animals, books, games, clothes arrived every day, and Mildred, who did some sewing occasionally, was busy making a dozen monkey sock dolls for her bed. 3 days before Christmas, after the mystery tree had been decorated, Dottie called and Francis said, "I need to see you right away." Francis walked into the post office and Dottie looked grim. She handed her a letter she had just pulled out of the letters to Santa Claus box. Francis recognized the childish scrawl immediately. Oh man, this is going to be hard. "Dear Santa Claus, please let me see Jack. I am scared he is hurt. I do not want any presents. I've been a good girl, I promise. I am living at Mrs. Cleaverton's now. It is the blue house by the post office. Love, your friend Patsy. Oh my god, that's heart-wrenching. Oh my god. I can't. The first Christmas Eve dinner at the community hall with her own child was not as happy as Frances had imagined. There was a pall on the entire evening. When Santa called her child up to receive her present, it would be the one thing she wanted it would not be the one thing she wanted most in the world. What was so heartbreaking for Frances and Oswald uh what was so heartbreaking for Frances and Oswald as well was that she wanted something that neither of them could give her. Even the tree lighting that year was a bust. When Butch flipped the switch, there was a brief flare, pop, and then nothing. When they left, Butch was still trying to fix it. But despite the tree fiasco, Patsy was cheerful on the way home. She didn't tell anyone, but she believed with all her heart that she was going to see Jack tomorrow, and she could hardly wait. She fell asleep with his picture in her hand. Oh, God. Oh, this is making me so sad. I'm gonna stop right there before this becomes a too long video.